There is a very deep, innate, internal, intrinsic, reverberating desire within human beings to have an identity. You see, and we usually try and fill this with nationality, professions, your job, your social groups, and what have you. You know, your associations with people based on certain other similarities. You know, maybe your sport, maybe your race, maybe your cultural upbringing. But you know, my friends, at the end of it, these things, there's something even deeper. Because at the end of it, you still, it doesn't fill you. You begin to see that, yeah, you may have a similarity with someone based on your job, and that may last for a while, but at the end, you're so different from that person. You see? I mean, you begin to start trying to find out, you know, what is it? Who am I? You know, these really simple questions that, you know, it usually takes us a while to really ask them, you know, and try and find out who we really are. And that's because the world and the identities of the world are very fleeting. You know, you have a job for 20 years, you work there, and you know, you based your life on that particular job, and then the company closed down, and then, you know, what you did for 20 years, it becomes and falls to pieces now, because you can no longer go back to that, you know, and live your life according to that. So you have to have something deeper. You know, you based a relationship on with somebody based on a similar sport that you played, but they had completely different ideas about life, you see, and the way to conduct themselves in life. So you began to, you know, say that, hey, is that it? You know, do we just talk about sports all the time? You know, or do we just, you know, isn't there anything else to it? You see, my friends, and all the worldly identities are finite, and they are subject to death, you see. So they won't last. And they don't last. Even for those people whose ancestors have been doing something for the last 1,000 years, there'll always be that 1 year where things might change. You see, we never know. And then you'll be forced to say, well, I can't do what they did for 1,000 years. No matter how much it's in my blood, or how much it's you know, it swims in my thoughts, I can't do it because things have changed. You see, maybe a flood came in, and you couldn't live where your ancestors lived for the last 1,000 years. What are you going to do then? You couldn't do what everybody did. Their professions that they went after for those 1,000 years, because they lived there on that physical land for that period of time. You see, so now all of a sudden you have to change. You see, so what is it? Human beings, who are they? You know, we are the words that we receive. You know, words that we receive from, passed on from the parents and ancestors, and words that we receive from the depth of our heart about who we are from the outside. You see, so really, that's what, you know, we've been taught to believe, is that we are these two, you know, these two words, and then we begin to we believe them, then we speak them, and then we do them. You see, oh, my ancestors have been, you know, mathematicians for the last 6 generations, so I'm a mathematician. You know, and yes, you will have a proclivity towards those things, because that's what Your ancestors trained themselves, and so they passed it on, as well as their weaknesses, they passed on in the blood. But even these things, they can be changed. If your ancestors were thieves, which happens in science, so it's easy for you to be a good thief. And then one day, you realize, you see what people are doing and how they've hurt people, and it just doesn't rub right with you. And then this one friend of yours told you that, man, that kind of life is not good. You never live in peace. So you start to think about this, and then you make the decision to say, hey, look, I can't do this anymore. So now you've changed the history. You haven't become a slave to those thoughts that were passed on to you. You see, because you received an external word from somebody, because you realize within you that there's something wrong. You started realizing that you're hurting people, you're intimidating people, you're threatening people, using force, you're manipulating and coercing people. You see, so you said, no, I can't do this. So you had to leave all that stuff behind, all those things. And so now you made it easier now for your own children to also have that change within them. You see, so now all these things I tell you for these temporary identities. Someone's parents were musicians, so it's easy for them to become. It's true, to a certain degree. But my friends, if you look at musicians and these people, some of them, they try and find life in music, or they try and find life in sport, or they try and find life in their writing, or in this ability or that. And all these things, as much as people try and spend all these years trying, they don't give you, and they don't fill you the way you need to be filled. They don't fill you because there's a part of you that's eternal. And these things, all of them are temporary and have a time limit on them. You see, there's only one thing that is eternal, and that's the Spirit of God. That's the only true identity for human beings. To receive that or reject that, it's up to us. You see, this is what fills us. And in order to be led of the Spirit, we ourselves need to submit the flesh, which is the part of us that's going to die. You see, the Spirit is the part of us that's going to live on. Where it lives is what matters. You see, so our identity must come from Jesus Christ. That's where it must come from. You die to your race. You die to the blood of your ancestors. You die to your job. You die to all these things more and more. And you begin to let the blood of Jesus and the ancestry that's within that blood, that was, that is to come, that is the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. When you begin to allow those thoughts and that blood to flow within you, then you have your identity, my friends. Then we have our identity. You see, so we don't measure ourselves based on what we look like on the outside, but more predominantly on who we are spiritually. Those are our brothers and sisters. You see, those that try to make Jesus number one in their lives, which is very easy to say, but it's very hard to do. You see, so my friends, my advice to myself first, and then to everybody else, is that we should all try and get our identity from Jesus, and ask Him from the depth of our hearts who He wants us to be, because He has thoughts about all of us and what we need to do and what has been laid out for us. You see, this is the way forward. we shouldn't be seeking, as believers in Jesus Christ, we shouldn't be seeking our identity from the world and then sticking the label of Christian on the outside. We must submit all these things more and more. And when we start to do these things, Jesus is merciful. Many times He'll give us things that we don't deserve if He sees us making an effort. You see? Many times He gives us things we don't deserve, and I can attest to that. So my friends, please try your best. Not just for your sake, but for my sake too. Because we all help each other, you see? Whether we know it or don't know it, when we submit ourselves to the Spirit of God and try and make Jesus number one.